Welcome to the Corny and Barrow podcast. This edition is a conversation with one of our favourite Italian winemakers, Giulia Negri, and Will Monroe from our very own sales team. Giulia is based in the beautiful Piedmont in northern Italy and is widely considered one of the most up-and-coming producers in the region. They'll be discussing the stunning Barolo wines she makes, as well as her estate, her farming practices, biodiversity, truffles, as well as a touch on her recent TV appearance with Stanley Tucci. Over to you, Will.
Hi guys, I am sat here in our headquarters in 1 Thomas More Street, London, with the wonderful Giulia Negri, who's come over from Piedmont to come and have a chat with us. Welcome, Giulia.
Well, thank you very much, Will. It's a pleasure to be back.
Super, yeah, it's good to have you back. But you're on a pretty long trip around the world. This is a bit of the first stop of what's going to be a couple of months, I hear, traveling.
Yes, it will be the start because it's actually we are finishing to prune and then so we have to
Yeah.
wait and it's the best time for traveling for
Hmm.
see some clients around the world. And so
Yeah.
yes, I will head to the US, Canada and then Brazil. Also an exotic market this time, which is okay.
Nice. Do you get much inspiration from your travels when in your sort of projects back at home? Do you sort of see things they're doing in exotic places, maybe with farming and agriculture, and you think, how they're maybe attacking climate change and stuff and want to incorporate that at home? Or are you just chilling out?
To me, like travel is the best way to spend money
Mm,
by far. And I grew up by traveling really a lot with my parents, which was like, I'm extremely, I think, a big lack for that. It's extremely important both because you are in another world, you learn a lot about different culture, you understand even how small you are,
mm,
which often you can get stuck in your day by day life, and things that are not so important becomes important. And so it allows also to really give the right way to things, and from everywhere you can learn. It's we love to travel because you meet people, and these people you always bring them with all your life. Like last time in Colombia, over 15 nights, we had dinner together just once, the two of us.
yeah,
All the time we were meeting new people, and so this is a
exactly.
enrich you quite a lot.
Yeah. Anyway, I'd like to dial things back now and get onto your story, talk about the wonderful estate that you have. I mean, I've been at Corney and Barrow since 2016, and certainly your wines have been a large part of my journey here and watching them develop, as well as sort of getting to know you in that sort of short time has been awesome. How did you get in touch with Corny and Barrow in the first place? So what was the process of that happening?
It was through a very nice woman that was called Colleen,
Hmm.
that she was an agent. Unfortunately, she's no more here. It was in 2000 or 13 or 14,
Yeah,
I think.
nice.
And actually, Cornebaro was really my first importer worldwide. It was the first partner with whom I started to work to export the wine
Mm,
since the truly, truly beginning.
yeah. Well, we're
So
coming up to the sort of 10th year anniversary then, I guess, which is
exactly, it's almost a
yeah,
wedding.
exactly. I mean, it's amazing to see how you've been making wine for already much longer than 10 years, despite still being relatively young in the grand scheme of the wine world, where there's lots of very, very experienced people who've been, making wine for 40, 50 plus years, especially in a region with so much heritage and culture as Piedmont. What were the steps towards you sort of wanting to become a winemaker? Did you grow up wanting to make wine, or did you sort of slowly move down that route?
I grew up absolutely without. My idea was I will for sure do not make wine. So it was exactly the opposite. But even because I'm coming, I don't remember who said once like that everything born or by chance and random or by necessity. And it was like it was a sum up of random events that happened to me and my generation before, my family since 100 years. And but actually me when I've started, it was absolutely not in my plan before, and I felt in love with it completely. I was absolutely not expecting it. So it was also to me something big that happened while I was seeing myself in completely other business and other world and living another life. And I'm extremely happy that this changed, and I'm here today doing what I do.
Yeah. So you went from, I mean, you were living in Rome at one point. Were you destined to work in like a cosmopolitan city environment, and you suddenly did you crave the outdoors when you were living there, or were you sort of it was by chance that you ended up in Piedmont?
It was because I born in Palermo, but I grew up in Rome. So in Rome, I made all my from my 0 to my 17. So I'm actually from Rome. In fact, it's my city. And then I moved to Milan and I made university there, the Master of Science there. And then I started to work in a completely different field, that was the biotech anti-cancer research. So in the research field. And actually, of course, I was seeing myself. Next step would have been to go in another country to develop the investment that we were doing. But then in the middle, there was this trip to Burgundy that led me understood what wine was, which to me was absolutely not clear. To me, wine was something material that you can create exactly as, I don't know, sunglasses or whatever. And so when I understood it, it took me, I fired myself immediately when I came back. And in 1 month, I was living in La Morra alone, like completely.
That's quick. Yeah, I mean
I
that's
never had not even 1 second of doubt on doing it.
yeah. Well, that's amazing. It's
Mm.
like you had that eureka moment, but the what I find quite incredible is that you went on a trip to Burgundy, and within a very short space of time, you had your own estate, making your own wines and your own name. And yeah, so what were the processes that sort of led to wanting to go from being having that eureka moment in Burgundy to having your own estates? Like, how long did it take to go down that route? Because it's not easy setting up a wine estate at all, financially, but also where the land is that you're going to do it. I mean, how did everything play out essentially from that Burgundy trip?
It took a few years. I mean, there was from one side the fact that no one was making wine in the family, really making it in the production process, allowed me since the beginning to touch the wine and to make the wine, which is something not obvious in a region as, you know, Piemonte. When to change, where to change the generation is something that can take a lot of time. So this was a pro, and so I started immediately to make it. On the other side, it took a lot of time to establish, in the sense to set it up with my family, to start to set the team, to have also, you know, on the other side, I didn't had any memorial history because again, no one was making it. So I had to build my own idea, and so of course with plenty of question and okay, I will follow this path, I will follow this other path, let's see how it will goes. It's also true that it helped me a lot, the fact that to know that I was knowing nothing. To me it was a pro because I didn't had any prejudice against nothing, which allowed me to really be like a sponge
Hmm.
with every reality that I was touching. So in order to get from every different winery something that to me was making sense.
Yeah.
But then, you know, I felt in love with wine because the philosophy was really I want to bring the terroir and the vineyard in the glass. And so you follow, you know that your best choice will be to respect and to do the best in the vineyard. So nowadays I'm extremely happy because I'm now picking the work of 10 years because I'm
Yeah.
now seeing it in the vineyards, I'm now seeing it in the grapes. So
Yeah.
it's, in fact, the best is still yet to come. It's
Exactly. It's a good like life lesson in that respect, I think, sort of making wine. And it's you're not going to make a great wine overnight. You need to put in a decade or decades to sort of do that. And in a world where everything is so immediate,
mm,
it's really it's good and important to have things around you which take time and you can see that progression over time, which kind of, I guess, leads me into sort of the next area I want to discuss with you, which is how you found your sort of identity as a winemaker grow since you started the estate, and what have you found have there been the sort of the main changes in the way you operate in the last 10-15 years?
The identity, I think, to me, it's extremely linked to Serra Denari as a crew, because when I arrived, I was in love with that place, but it was still quite unknown to also big connoisseur of Piemonte, and I really bet on it. And it was like every year we were discovering each other. I was discovering the crew, and the crew was discovering me, how with which approach I was treating him. And so the identity has been built by seeing observing year after year how the expression was evolving of the grapes, of the wine. And as you know, before I was making only one Barolo, I started to produce three of them because I
Mm-hmm.
saw that there was a huge difference of microclimate at mine. And it was like every year a confirmation that it was a right bet to be
Yeah.
there. And when today, I have other winemakers saying, yeah, I will start to produce Serra Denari, even big winemaker, and I'm like,
Mm.
it's a sort of satisfaction,
Yeah,
and
sense of achievement.
so to me the wine speaks. So to me, I love to make wine because I want to make high quality wine, and the identity is in that glass, and the identity for me has been more and more built by having year after year with constancy some results from where I was growing the grape. And this is so beautiful, and you also take a lot of self-confidence year after year, and you make choice with more consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
You add details that add a lot of quality to the wine, and so it's really Serra Denari and Giulia Negri identity is more or less the
Mm.
same.
And then I guess comes the Nebbiolo grape, which for the listeners out there is the who don't know, it's the main grape in Piedmont. When did you sort of fall in love with that grape, Nebbiolo, and does it still continue to sort of amaze you in 15 years of making wines there?
And Nebbiolo is like, it's an incredible personality, extremely wise, and quite arrogant too. It's a variety that is extremely, he knows exactly from where he come from and who he is, and so he know exactly where he want to go, because it's
Yeah.
these are the assets to know where you want to go. And it's a variety that it's unique. It's incredible how really the result, the wine, the Barolo or the Barbaresco, are really the result of Nebbiolo
Mm-hmm.
applied not only at the soil, which have a weight, but to the microclimate, how it changed immediately, and how we found this place in the Barolo area or in the Barbaresco area, because Nebbiolo, it's really a lot tried to produce it elsewhere, but at the end it's not coming. So he stays, he loves this place, he loves to be under the Alp, and he brings all the terroir inside the glass all the time, and it changed so much. So
Have you found anywhere else in the world where there could be the right terroir to grow Nebbiolo? Because it's not it's pretty rare to see from anywhere but
yes,
Piedmont.
I tasted one from Mexico that was good,
Okay, cool. Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
Then there are some in Australia. They tried a little bit in Argentina, in South Africa, but really, like, all over. I don't know. There are like 5,600 hectares worldwide of Nebbiolo planted, and like 400 are outside, are in around the
It's
world.
tiny. Mm,
Yes.
interesting. And we've also seen at this sort of similar time to when you've been making wine, the global demand for Piedmont has grown pretty significantly. Have you seen tourism um, grow significantly since you've been making wine there, and sort of Brits and Americans and people from the Far East coming over for their holidays to drink and eat your food?
Yes, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Now I was, even when I was going to the airport, leaving from there, and it's now in general like January, February are the dead months, like off season, and it was full. Everything in the middle of La Morra, it seemed like Venice, that you are not able to walk in, and it's incredible, absolutely. Like during the season of October, November, it was packed of
Mm.
people coming from worldwide, everywhere. The restaurant should have been booked like 3 weeks before, otherwise impossible. So it's definitely increasing as destination. Then it's not forcefully a tourism all just driven by wine, but just by enjoying the beautiful part of the region. So
Yeah. Is the infrastructure there to like be able to put up so many people? Because I know that in um, places like Burgundy has changed a lot in the last 30, 20 years, and you can't drive down the sort of the Rue de Grand Cru without going past a village which has a huge crane in it, building some either new great cellar for people to visit or another hotel going up. And is that changing in Piedmont too?
absolutely, yes. You have more and more wineries also investing in welcoming structure. So maybe, bed and breakfast, hotel, boutique hotel. So definitely. Then we miss parking, etc. So we see plenty of cars, in the vineyards, which are not
Yeah.
forcefully what
No.
we want to see. But of course, there is a huge demand, and as you were saying, even things are going well for the region. So of course, you reinvest in um, infrastructure, but it's definitely more or less as Burgundy as going on infrastructure that are growing up.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not surprised. I mean, it's such a one of the most beautiful regions out there. I mean, with the stunning views of the Alps.
Yes, then it's also extremely well geolocated, because if you think in 1 hour and a half you are in Milan, in 1 hour and a half you go to ski, in 1 hour and a half you are in Portofino at the sea if you want. So, or in Côte d'Azur. So it's really like logistically speaking is not a bad place where to live.
Mm. Exactly. And I guess that's one of the reasons that Stanley Tucci came up and visited Piedmont recently on the BBC, and obviously you were on the show, which must have been quite exciting. I know a lot of people that watched that show. How did that whole thing come around? Because it's one thing you're just there making your wine, doing your thing. Did you just get a phone call
I
from
just got a
Stanley?
phone call.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they told me, could I come this day? Okay. And nothing was prepared. Yeah, I didn't knew what they wanted to film or nothing. Absolutely. And just, okay, we will come that day, this morning, and then we will have lunch all together. Okay, let's do that. And then it came, it was extremely natural. It was so funny. We laughed so much. And it's a very nice show because it brings really the authentic soul of Italy.
Hmm.
It's plenty of documentary of Italian lifestyle, and while searching for Italy, really took some elements that are extremely true for all of us Italians. So it has been a huge pleasure and a huge honor to be chosen to show Piemonte in the under a viticultural point of view.
So I think that's the whole. That's given us a really good insight into Piedmont and yourself. But it'd be good to get to like your farm and the biodiversity of the farm. So what makes it so special where you are, especially what for you?
It's really a little piece of heaven, quite unique, the one that I am so lucky to carry on. It's not because it's mine, but honestly, it's among really the last place all over the Barolo area that has still like so much forest,
Mm.
which is there since 400 years. Because actually today the property is composed by 6 hectares and a half of vineyards, but 12 of forests that completely surround the vineyard.
Hmm.
And at the beginning, when I moved there, I was like, what should I do with the forest? And second, it was like, I'm in the highest elevation crew or Barolo, this will not be positive. And it's incredible how year by year, nowadays, my best luck are the forests and the fact that
Yeah.
I'm such in a high altitude crew that allows to carry on the vineyard as I want and to produce the kind of wine that I think are the best expression of that crew. And so the forest started to be the central part of my viticulture
Hmm.
because I'm not in a place where you have to recreate biodiversity. Biodiversity is absolutely there. So you have completely to change. The approach is now, it's since 2 years that I'm working with an agronomist who made a lot of research of the relationship between forest and vineyard, the different population of antagonists for
Hmm.
disease that are actually living in the forest. And this started by observing that there was a vineyard pre-Phylloxera
Yeah.
at the end of the forest. And in fact, Phylloxera never arrived because it was protected by the forest, that was a natural forest on which it was not belonging to that, and so it never entered in. And since then it started like, okay, observing this, let's study it more. And so today everything is around the forest, what is in the forest. I stopped to do even some tisane of
Yeah.
herbs that actually do not grow in the forest. I just want to, who I am to change that ecosystem. No one. So nature is extremely smart at the end of the day. We just have
Yeah,
to leave
definitely.
her work, even because it takes so much time to have an environment healthy. So what today we are planting again will be a forest with its own soul and biodiversity
Yeah.
in 200 years. It take a lot of time. It's not something that, and it's a pity that back in time this was not considered at all. So
Yeah. People used to, yeah, people didn't have the awareness that we're lucky to have now, I guess. Which, yeah, which is good that people are now sort of doing these things, I guess. But obviously, as well, in the forest, you've got the chestnut trees, which I've heard a lot about. What makes them so special for you?
they are again a witness of the healthiness of the environment, because chestnut trees are extremely sensitive to treatment,
Hmm.
and they completely disappeared from the area of Barolo, while before it was full of it.
Hmm.
And they completely disappeared, and actually we are among the only one having it still so healthy in the middle of the forest. So it's again a witness about the healthiness of the forest, and how if you leave nature working, you will preserve it. You will preserve it's an healthy environment. So our bees love the chestnut tree.
And do you have your own bees at the estate then too?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
They arrived from the forest, and during the lockdown, two group,
Hmm.
and now they became five.
Okay, wow. And that's great for pollination and the vineyards and everything.
Yes, absolutely, yes. And then it's again another witness, because again, even bees are extremely sensitive to treatment. So
Yeah,
it's another witness of really how the environment over there is healthy, and
yeah,
yeah, they
yeah.
love the forest.
Healthy environment, healthy wines.
They are in the most amazing spot of the winery because they have their R's looking at the mountain, so they have the best view ever. So they're very
Hmm.
spoiled
Yes,
bees, the
good.
ours.
Yes. What you're also, especially in our office and within Corny and Barrow, known for is the white truffles that you have growing on the well beneath the land, I guess, in the forest. It's so cool, and there's such a sort of sacred produce, I guess. Do you how do you sort of how do you go about truffle hunting at that time of year? I mean, it's November to December, if I'm correct in thinking.
Yes, it really depends on the season, but in general, it starts from, let's say, really to find some from October to January.
Yeah. And are these sold in restaurants, or is it purely for your own enjoyment?
No, it's absolutely for us, not selling it, but even because I'm not really going a lot to truffle hunt,
Yeah.
because it's unfortunately in the same time zone where you have other things to do in the cellar. And so it's just for us, absolutely. And there are mainly a lot of truffle hunter that come and steal us our truffle, and so
Yes.
this is how it goes, and we accept it.
And do people break onto the land then to steal in the middle of the night?
Yes, absolutely. But even because it's so easy, and
Mm,
you cannot control all
no.
over 12 hectares.
But what's your favorite pairing then with truffle, if you had to pick anything?
Very classical to me is the egg.
Just egg and truffle.
Absolutely.
Okay. And is that a fried egg or a poached egg?
Yes, fried egg, like
Nice.
we call it occhio di bue, eyes of
Okay.
the cow.
Nice.
And just like this, the yellow part remain extremely liquid when you open it,
Mm-hmm.
and you
Mm-hmm.
put the truffle. And to me, is the best pairing ever for truffle. Absolutely.
Yeah. Sometimes the most simple are the best with
Mm,
with that kind of stuff.
often.
Brilliant. So I mean, we digress onto truffles, but let's bring it back to the winemaking and the estate, because we've not discussed your wines yet. And it's a shame we don't have any of them in front of us at the moment, but I would love it if you could tell us the story. We can start off maybe with your Barolos and tell us the story of your three different Barolo wines, because they've all got very different terroirs, which you've discovered, I guess, over the years you spent making wine there. So it would be great to hear more about them, please.
Yes, even because again they born by random at the end, and just because at the beginning when I arrived, the vineyard were all vinified and picked together, actually, more or less. And me, I started to everything was a cause and consequence. So my idea was on the Nebbiolo, the most important thing to have on a variety that is such tannic as Nebbiolo is to reach the phenolic ripeness. The phenolic ripeness is the ripeness of the tannins, of the seeds, of all the part that, for who doesn't know, are the structure part of the wine. Let's put it in a simple way. And so I decided to start to pick all the parcel when they reach their phenolic ripeness, and then to blend them together in the future. So before, just I wanted to pick everything at the right moment, and then we will see. We will blend them. And actually, the difference, the window of harvest of picking date was larger. It could have, at the beginning, I had like 15 days between the first
Mm-hmm.
parcel that I was picking and the last one. And so for this reason, I vinified them apart, and we're aging apart because every parcel had its own path. And if there is a positive side of having a wine aging for years, is that you have quite enough time to see how it evolves and it develop. And I discovered three completely different personalities, different wine, absolutely different expression of Nebbiolo. And since then, I started to do some
Mm-hmm.
deeper analysis of the soil, which before no one did. And I discovered to have three completely different geological formation, because these come from how geologically Serra Denari has been created, because Serra
Mm-hmm.
Denari is the highest cru all over the Baloro appellation. So of course, when there was the creation of the Alps, it was a huge point of impact, of violence between the two
Mm-hmm.
plaques that were crashing each other. And this is why we have this really huge parcellization of soil that is incredible. And so I started to produce three different Barolo that are the one that we have today. So the Barolo La Tartufaya, which comes from, which is called like this, La Tartufaya, because it's in the parcel where my grandfather tried to have some white
Mm-hmm.
truffle in an
Okay.
artificial way,
It's impossible. I
which he
hear. Yeah.
never it's impossible, but he
Mm.
was the one, and thanks to him we
Yeah.
have the forest, because he bet on the forest and not in the vineyard. And so from that parcel is a clay parcel. Clay is the clayer parcel that I have. Is in is a richer soil, deeper. It brings
Hmm.
more vigor to the vines, and it's really among the three Barolo is the one that to me is the more typical from La Morra, fruit driven, with the tannins that are
Hmm.
welcoming already since their youth. Then we go to the Serra Denari, and Serra Denari is all the vineyard are in Serra Denari, but this to me is the one that really expressed the crew. And we are on the sand, on a sandy soil, but also acid one,
Yeah.
which is something absolutely untypical for the area. And I decided to make the Serra Denari from this parcel because it was the first one that let me hypothesize the terroir effect at mine. Because in general, acidity is not something positive for the vineyard. It brings you more vigor, while this is a vineyard that is completely in balance.
Hmm.
Really, even a lazy guy can work on it. Canopies in balance, the grapes
Mm.
are small, smaller berries. And when you taste the Serratenari, you enter in the forest. Like when you smell it, you are really with the vegetal part of the Nebbiolo, which
Yeah.
it's never green. It's always like the branches, the dry branches, the underforest, and it's really exactly the image of what we have actually at ours. And then the Marassio, the Barolo Marassio is the highest parcel on the limestone soil. So really three completely different expression that we take care of them more or less in the same way. And so they really express only the terroir.
Yeah. I heard a really good analogy that you did with different types of terroir in an interview I think you did a while ago, where you were saying different types of wool. One silk.
Yes.
Could you just explain to the, if you remember?
Yeah, this is because it gives you an idea about the different tannin structure that the three wines have, no? And so La Tartufaglia is more a rustic wool,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
not worked. Serradenari, you go on the cashmere.
Okay. Nice.
And Marassio, you are in definitely you are dealing with silk.
Yes.
So it's really and it gives you I think a right idea about the tannins framework that you have when you taste this wine.
Certainly, it brings them to life because you can certainly, some people are more cashmere and silk than than others. But you've also got a huge amount gained influence, I guess, from Burgundy, because you plant some Pinot Nero and Chardonnay, which is quite unique for Piedmont. How did that come around?
This there is a huge mistake in the fact that a lot of people think that because I love Burgundy, I planted Chardonnay and Pinot Nero, while actually it was the first consultant of my father when they planted when they replanted everything, because in 2001 my father replanted with the idea to resell. And on the north exposed part where Nebbiolo can't be planted to become Barolo, he said at such an altitude, which is 550 meters, let's try Chardonnay and Pinot Nero. And actually, when I arrived at the estate, I was super like, what should I do with this vineyard? Because while Pinot, I was extremely curious. Chardonnay, I was like, but in general, I do not like so much the Chardonnay from the area. What should I do? And actually, it was a huge surprise to deal with these grapes and what is coming up there. It's interesting to see also in some international variety,
Yeah, for
let's
sure.
say. And of course, over there, the influence is from Burgundy by far
Yeah,
because
well, it's good to clear that story up because people might have misunderstood that as thinking you planted them. Um, but do you have any plans to grow any other grapes, or are you focused on Nebbiolo and Barbera? Really, is the main ones for now.
is definitely the main one. If I would start something new at Serra Denari, it would be for fun some dolcetto.
Okay, cool. Yeah, nice.
But for me, just for fun. So
Yeah.
I would not change grapes over there.
Hmm. And what I mean, the in other regions which you're getting the effects of climate change, well, climate change is affecting everywhere right now. there is talk of people, rumors really, but talk of people growing other grape varieties, and people joke that they'll be growing Syrah in the Côte de Beaune and the Côte de Nuit. How are you seeing climate change affect your specific vineyards? I know that you're higher up, so you've got a little bit, if anything, it might be helping a little bit with the ripening process. But I look at winemakers as frontline workers because you're there dealing with the effects of climate change every single day. Have you seen some big changes in your vineyards over the last few years?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely, yes. Even because now, apart the temperature that went up,
Mm-hmm.
we really have, since the two last year, our problem is water.
Yeah.
I changed everything in my viticulture approach in the last year, even because I think, uh, our job as vigneron is to take care of the vineyard as best as we can. And so this means to observe the weather and to change immediately, to adapt to the weather. What we can do is the only power that we have is that one. So this is why we do not have at all any kind of receipt or dogma or
Mm-hmm.
so like last year, before I was not so much working the soil. Last year we had so few rain that when there was some like 2 drops forecasted, we were working the soil in order to really allow the water to enter in, because the soils
Mm.
were so dry that they were as stone,
Mm-hmm.
so nothing would have stayed. You change completely with the management of the canopy. You do not reduce the yields, absolutely not, because it's not needed, and then even you concentrate a lot,
Mm-hmm.
from my point of view. Now, it's February and we have 18 degrees and the buds are starting, so frost is on the back, so we started to prune extremely long. We leave a lot of buds because like this, the last buds will be the first one to start. This
Mm-hmm.
could be frozen and then you will cut.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, the very big advantage of Serra Denari is that the altitude. The paradox is that we have a milder temperature. Like in
Mm-hmm.
winter, it's less cold, so we do not have frost, and in summer, it's less warm. So this allows still to have some progressive ripeness, so you do not risk from one day to another to have a drop of acidity of concentration in alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
It allows us to work still quite well. It's a big, enormous advantage to be
Mm-hmm.
such in high altitude.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was not the same 50 years ago, because to say 50 years ago that this one would have been a good spot would be a
Mm-hmm.
lie.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Interesting. And that's why your grandfather was maybe trying to grow white truffles.
yes, but there were some vineyards before, so
Yeah. Yeah. Of
but
course.
then
I wanted to sort of round things off by asking you what lessons have you learned from being a winemaker about which you can take to everyday life? What has it taught you about life and the way you live it?
I think the biggest lesson is to give the right value to time,
Mm-hmm.
and that big results are achieved exactly as a good wine with time, and how it evolves over time, how you get mature over time, how I was extremely impatient before, and I became actually more patient.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't control everything, so it's through winemaking you really have the chance to touch and deal with nature every day,
Mm.
and to bring in one of the most beautiful drink that you can have, that bring really the history, and it brings you a lot of traditions inside a glass. That, and often tradition and innovation are seen as two things that are one against the other,
Mm.
while at the end tradition is a sum of a lot of innovation that has been done during centuries,
Mm-hmm.
and its culture, and again time brought it since centuries and centuries, that we are carry on vineyard
Mm.
with a product that is a very long living, and that change a lot all over time, and learn you how
Yeah.
you have to stay.
Yes, I think that's a good lesson for anyone really. Patience and take your time and the results will come. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Giulia.
A pleasure. Thank you so much.